or it should ideally be 100% right, but sometimes you just like have a spark of inspiration. It's like, okay, gotta go. Let's just, even if it's just like a iPhone recording, and then people use that. It's crazy. So like on the one hand, like 100%, but on the other hand, I feel like there's that room. There has to be that wiggle room for like a bit of creativity occasionally.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. It doesn't have to be perfect all the time, but I think for
Yeah,
someone like him, preparedness was part of the job.
yeah, yeah,
Going
yeah,
to the
yeah.
studio, having a massive crew, people to line up tape machines and do that. So
Oof.
it was more so when you have budgets like that, it's kind of like you could
Yeah,
do kind of whatever you want and take as long as you want. I mean, Michael
yeah,
records used to take, 1 to 3 years, I think, just permanent lockdown, 3 rooms running at the same time, production room, writing rooms, mixing all at the same time. So,
yeah,
but for the new generation, his way of working is a lot different from how we work.
yeah,
And, he didn't really use plugins because that wasn't
yeah.
something that he needed really. He found ways to work without using many plugins, but he told us, he's like, if I were uh, born now, I would absolutely be using all these tools. So that's the other thing I got from him. He's like, use every tool that you have right now because every tool available to me, I was using.
Right.
All the new microphones, all the new tape machines that came out. He was very at the forefront of the technology that he had at the time.
Yeah, yeah,
So for
yeah.
me, it's like plugins and software and hardware. I'm all about finding the latest thing that can, give me that extra 5%.
Yeah, yeah, I totally hear that. It's like you take that philosophy of like doing the right work and the good work and applying it to the modern day with the modern tools and however, just the work is different now. Like you said, like the budgets are different. It's just like you just have to apply that wisdom in a new way.
Yeah, yeah. It's definitely about applying that wisdom in a new way and being happy to reinterpret what that wisdom could be nowadays. But yeah, the takeaway was just, music first, is always
Mm.
his motto. And then also Bernie Grundman was also there. So that was
Woo.
another interesting thing. Bernie master thrower. So we had the guy that finished, recorded and mixed throw and the guy who finished the record in the same room.
Jeez.
And also Ed Sheeran was there as well. So it was crazy. Ed
So
Sheeran worked with
you
like
you
Bonnie
won the
Raitt.
you won the lottery of I don't know, workshops.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I just won the lottery of like getting that knowledge firsthand because Ed also did pass away last year as well.
Right.
Bruce and Ed passed away a few months away from each other, so that was crazy. And that's how you kind of understand how precious life is and how rare it was to even be in a room with giants like that.
That is wild. Wow, I don't want to just talk about the greats, but I can't. I want to move on to you as well. But can you
Yeah.
just quickly tell us about your experience with Manny? Because I love his mixes, like especially the John Mayer records. Um,
Oh,
like that's how to mix. Like that's on my reference playlist. So what was your experience like with him?
yeah. Manny's incredible, incredible talent. I was lucky enough to get picked for the Mix with the Masters in 2013. And all my fellow students are just absolutely incredible talents. There's a producer, Martin C., who's a great producer, and he did string recordings and just incredible work. Another producer, Johnny Goldstein, who has #1 records with Black Eyed Peas right now. Um, like the talent level of the students itself is just insane. And Manny's just he's all about the music, man. He's all about the music, and he's hyper focused, and just a great guy. This business has a lot to do with your attitude, and he always told us, positive attitude is really what's gonna help you along in this career. No one wants to be in a room with an asshole for
Yeah,
10 hours.
yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
that's always an incredible thing. And he also let us know that it really is just about the music. It's not about the gear that we have. It's about how we listen to music, how we process it. And of course, there's techniques involved in getting that idea down. But for him, it's really about keeping that passion and yeah, it was phenomenal.
Amazing.
Really, really good.
Do you have like one technical takeaway from your your time with the with the masters with him?
Yeah, that a lot of technical things were basically, carving out space. He's really good at carving out frequencies out and finding what's important and kind of carving them and also making those frequencies touch, like kind of get glue in a different way. Um, by manipulating your EQ and manipulating your balance as well. Because, if you want something brighter and you got, kind of bright hi-hats, you just raise your hi-hats. Little things like that. It's really a lot about core balancing. Balancing is so important. You can really make a record feel a lot of different ways. If you could rebalance the record a million ways.
Yeah,
Give you a million different feelings. That was a really big takeaway.
that's so cool. Yeah, I love it. Wait, so let's jump forward to today. So you're primarily a mixing engineer. How did you niche into mixing?
I just did a bunch of recording and mixing was always something that I loved doing. I loved collaborating and listening to artists and also like getting involved and also basically being able to hear the record in my head a bit. It's an easier way to kind of get my creativity out there. And I just found it really fun and something that I was hyper passionate about and always think about. So mixing was just definitely the fit for me, and it's something I don't take for granted.
Nice. Do you do other things or do you only mix at this point?
I pretty much only mix. I mix and I do some additional production if me and the artist have that relationship, and I could do a little stuff there. But I kind of do it via the mix.
Yeah.
I might augment musical elements within the song and do something with that, like change out the kick or move something over a little bit and just do a little rearranging, furnishing, rearranging, based on what's there.
Yeah. I feel like that's super important. And there was an episode with a guy named Carl Bonner out of Pennsylvania who was like telling me, he's like, I think of myself as like a problem solver, So even though I'm hired to mix the track, sometimes there's a problem that needs solving. Like, you need an extra lift in this course. Let's add a shaker. You know what I mean? Like whatever it is. And that's something that I've been doing also, like, not always, but like if a mix calls for it, sometimes it's just like, let's just add an extra, let's add a kick drum here because it needs it, and you just got to communicate it with the artist.
Yeah, and one of the lessons learned too is like, don't take anything personal because, if an artist doesn't like a delay throw that I spent, 10 minutes on, they don't like it, I just take it out. But I feel like the mix, especially the first pass, you should be able to just kind of do what you feel like the record needs and then kind of just shape it from there. And then the artist could say they like this or they don't like that. And then you can move forward because we are getting paid for our taste at the end of the day. And handing over a mix is like, handing over very precious to the artist because we're hired to be objective. And also we're hired to, it's like the Hippocratic oath, do no harm. So there's always that thin line of like making it a lot better, but also not doing any musical harm or emotional harm to the record because that's a scarce process for the artist to basically give someone a record that essentially could be considered finished, right? All intents and purposes, and then you're giving it back even better with the same feeling, but just more enhanced. So those marks have to always hit, like I'm A being the rough, and I'm like, does it sound better? Does it feel better? Because those are two different thoughts that you could be using while mixing.
Oh, I like that. Yeah.
So you close your eyes and you listen and you start moving better. Like, well, this feels better, and it also sounds better, but it feels better. You feel more connected to the music. The mix, from my opinion, should just highlight the music. It's like watching a movie. If you watch a movie and you're completely distracted by the cinematography, then you're out of the movie. You want the cinematography to pull you into the movie. That's why like colors and
I love that. It's a great analogy.
Yeah, colors for me is important because music and colors are like the same for me. So like I see things in a color way while mixing, and I'm trying to blend these things. And for me, it's about closing my eyes and listening and feeling,
Yeah.
and then using my technical knowledge to get that across.
I really love that. I'm gonna think about that a little bit more next time I mix a song. I feel like no, when I like, I'll go back to like a reference track and I'll listen to mine. It's like mine. The mix almost always sounds better, right? It always sound. It's easy to get it to sound better,
Yeah,
but feeling better,
yeah.
that's harder. That's like intuition. I don't know. Like there's no formula for that. Maybe, or maybe there is. I don't know.
No. I think it's how you connect with the music, right? So technically, there's a lot of things that make things feel better. Sound better. But to get it to feel better, you're kind of thinking more with your right brain. So you got to be more creative, and you kind of have to balance your left brain, right brain. So you can't be too technical where you lose the music, and you can't be too artistic where you're just going willy nilly and your mix is in the red and it's distorting. So you need a clear balance of using your intuition and your technical knowledge to kind of steer. You got to drive off of instinct, and you got to use your GPS to make sure that you're going where you need to go, and you'll have a good ride.
Nice. Any tips for staying focused on like balancing those two things?
Yeah, I think there's a great book called Drawing on the Right Side of the Brain, which is an art book, but it also can help you dive into your right brain thinking and things like that. Books on creativity, how to keep yourself inspired, and sometimes I turn off the lights and I just close my eyes and I just listen, because we could easily be fooled by the visual perception of something, right? We start looking at an analyzer, an EQ, and we just see a bump somewhere. I'm like, oh my God, that looks bad. Or I'm gonna cut out 60 hertz here. I'm gonna start cutting this here. And then you're not really listening, you're just acting on what you're seeing. And that may be harmful. So like I would listen to the song, and if I feel like I'm getting a little bit too into the weeds, I stop it, make some coffee, and then I listen again. And by listening with my eyes closed, I don't want any visual feedback. I just want to listen and feel. And then everything becomes a little bit more obvious.
Yeah, that's really good.
Sense.
Yeah, that's a really good tip. Yeah, I'm gonna think about doing something like that next time I'm in the zone.
Yeah.
We'll talk more about in the zone in a little bit, but so let's dig deeper a little bit into your mixing philosophy. Are you analog? Digital? Like how hybrid are you? Are you using templates? Do you just have like a philosophy when it comes to mixing?
Yeah, I work all in the box. I used to have gear. I used to have like API 2500, 5500, and when you're someone that starts to get your first analog equipment, then you just want to throw it on everything. It's like a new season for a chef. I'm gonna throw this on everything, just see what it tastes like with other stuff. And at that point, I decided to go in the box completely, because I saw Chad Blake was mixing in the box, and I'm like, well, if he's mixing in the box and he's was a proponent of analog, then I could make it happen. So I didn't want to crutch either, right? So I didn't want to say to myself, I need this API or I need this Crane song to get a good result. So then I just stripped myself of anything I thought was a crutch, whether it was a plugin. I got rid of my UAD system, because I'm like, well, what if I'm in the studio and they don't have that? Am I going to not be able to do my thing? So I basically stripped my mixing equipment down to just bare essentials. So I just have I work in the box. I have a Clarity M scope, and I have my monitors, and that's really it. I have a fader port because I'm always automating by hand. And my template is cool. I have this kind of a long mixing template with a bunch of effects, returns, and subgroups and things like that. But everything is on a bypass. So per record, I would import the music into the session. I would then color code it, do the tempo marking, tempo map it, and then start organizing the drums and the vocals and things like that, and clearing up everything. So another thing that I do is, before I mix, I listen to the whole song, and then I listen to the lead vocal just solo, so I can just hear if there's any inconsistencies in it. and then the next day I'm just mixing. So I